Good evening, City Council, City staff, and the community. Thank you all for being here today. Today is Monday, August 3rd. We'll bring the City Council meeting together, and I'll ask the Deputy Clerk for a roll call vote, please.
Luther.
Here.
Edwards. Here. Sutherland.
Here.
Yanko. Present. Pickard. Here. Schwebs.
Here.
Gentz.
Here.
Hargrove.
Here.
Schlu.
Here.
Erdman.
Here.
Sommerfeld.
Here.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on to item number 2 is the approval of minutes from the July 20th City Council meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Ryland.
Yep, I would make a motion to approve the minutes from the last regular meeting.
We got a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I can second.
We got a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 3, public comments. This is the time for the public to come to the podium, give us your name and your address, and talk about agenda items only. For this meeting, specific example, if you're coming up for the I-4 ordinance, please keep your public comments to the I-4 ordinance and only as it pertains to the I-4 ordinance. We all have stances on data centers, and we just want to make sure that we're focusing on the I-4 ordinance. And if you want to talk about anything else on the agenda, please come up as well.
Hey everybody, my name is Charles Warner, and you guys, so first of all, I'm here to speak on I-4 today, section 4A, and you guys know the reasons and the needs of the community, so I'm not here to tell you that. Today I just want to tell you a story. So back in the day, the Stout Company started in the early 1840s. That was where this area got its root in. All right, and they cut trees all the way until 1901 when the mill closed. Why? In 1901, they cut the last of all the big white pines in the area. They had nothing else to cut. All right. So they were successful for a long time, right? But eventually things ran out. And it wasn't until the CCC replanted a bunch of trees all the way up to Lake Superior that the area really started to come back. And the reason why I say that is because I was sitting in my backyard the other night working on my master's thesis for UW Stout. And I was thinking about these trees. In my backyard sits the rail bed where the Knapp Stout Co. ran their wood to their logging mill. Mr. Stout rode trains through my backyard. And I just realized that literally on Sunday night. It's like, that's pretty cool, right? Now I'm thinking about these white pines that are 120 feet tall. The math says that those trees were infants when the mill shut down in 1901. So all that is me thinking about, well, what was here 100 years ago? What's different now? So I just want to keep you guys, please keep that in mind when you think about things. And the most powerful fact here I'm going to share is that the Knapp Stout Co. was the wealthiest company in the entire world when they operated. Stout was founded in 1861. And at that time, Mr. Stout was extremely wealthy. All right. That company no longer exists. They went under 1901. So wealthiest in existence to no longer in existence. So please just remember what happens after these companies leave. They could be profitable for a long time, bring immense wealth and power. So I want to say thank you guys for what you're doing, working on the community. I'm a dad of 2 young, 2 under 2. So thank you guys for looking out for us. There was a lot of stuff that happened last year in August, and I think people have learned. So I appreciate that, and I think others do. I can't make it to every meeting. I've said that before, but I pay attention and others do. And I expect you guys to please just keep putting your best foot forward. So with that, thank you guys and have a good night.
Charles, can we get your address too, please?
Yeah, my bad. N6802. 539th Street.
Thank you.
Good evening, Bruce Siebold, E6500 690th Avenue, Menomonie. Well, greetings once again. I've been before you several times, and I'm glad to be back. Congratulations to the new people that have been recently elected. I wish you well. I am not going to talk about your I-4 ordinances. I want to talk about the process. And I think we all can learn, and I think we all feel in our hearts that the process was not that good a year ago for a number of reasons. And I don't want to point fingers. I don't think that does anyone any good to point fingers. But I want to ask you a few questions and see if that can provide some reflections on where we go in the next months ahead. The first one is, I'm a non-resident of Menomonie, I sometimes feel, how does my voice going to be heard? I can come and talk to you for 3 minutes, but that's not enough. Is there a place where I can talk to each one of you, or a system that's in place where my voice is heard? Because I am going to be impacted by that data center. I live a half mile from it. My property value is probably going to go down. So I do not, and my well maybe go dry. So how do I get my voice heard? Secondly, the process would be much better if you highlighted a very specific time frame in terms of what the whole process will go forward on. I've read what you said, Mayor. I've read the other materials coming out. It does not state a specific time frame in terms of expectations. That would eliminate a lot of confusion and fear on the part of the public. Thirdly, are we going to be hamstrung again by the council having NDAs where it's not transparent, it's not open, it's not a discussion that takes place because you're all hamstrung by NDAs. Let's get rid of that. I would also ask that voices be heard in a town hall type meeting. Let's have a public forum. Let's have a give and take, not 3 minutes where you sit there and listen, but a forum where you can speak back to the residents and get your feelings on what's going on, not just a one-way communication. I've been involved in Anderson Windows, the glass factory, all these that have come to town, and no one has come to town and says, I won't give you my name, who I am. Is this a citizen? Is this a corporate citizen who wants to be a member of our community, who is afraid to give us their name? And you can say, well, that's the way business is today. That's not Menomonie business. The world is watching. The state of Wisconsin is watching us tonight in terms of what you're going to do, how you're going to progress, how the process is going to work. Let's make that a good process, open process, and something that we can be proud of, as well as our children and grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Deanna Shane, and I reside at N 7038 740th Street. I'm here tonight to speak and to listen regarding the proposed I-4 zoning ordinance. First, I want to thank the council for taking a pause. That pause matters. It shows you're willing to think carefully, to plan deliberately, and to consider what is truly best for Menomonie and its neighbors. Now is exactly the time to slow down and do this right. We should not rush out of fear of a lawsuit. We should be bold. We should do what is right for Menomonie. Many of us want to see Menomonie grow, but a large-scale data center would do the opposite of that. It would consume resources, strain infrastructure, and provide very little long-term benefit to the community. Menomonie is one of the first municipalities in Wisconsin to draft an ordinance like this. That means we have an opportunity and a responsibility to create a model that other cities and townships can emulate. I've read the draft ordinance. It's a good start, and I appreciate the work that has gone into it, but it is just a start. There are good bones here, clear sections on noise, water, light, and traffic, but I didn't see penalties. Without meaningful penalties, accountability becomes optional for companies with deep pockets. These tech giants can often pay fines or fight in court more cheaply than complying. That cannot be the structure we rely on. Noise and proximity protections. One of the biggest concerns with data center development is the impact on nearby residents. This includes the noise from the months or years of construction and the ongoing noise from generators, cooling systems, and 24/7 operations. The draft mentions noise mitigation, but without enforcement mechanisms or penalties, compliance becomes voluntary. To truly protect residents, noise standards must be paired with meaningful physical setbacks. The current proposal of 400 feet for structures and 800 feet for generators is not enough. If the goal is real attenuation, we need both distance and physical barriers. Trees alone won't do that. Berms, while not attractive, are significantly more effective at blocking sound. That's why I'm asking the council to consider a minimum 1,000-foot setback from any residential property. combined with required berms or engineered sound mitigation structures. Distance reduces exposure, barriers reduce impact. Without both, the ordinance leaves residents vulnerable. I strongly encourage the council to hold town halls or listening sessions over the next few months. Community input should shape this ordinance. Monitoring and enforcement must be a priority, even if it costs more. And penalties must actually hurt. If there is no moment where their zoning or operating permit is at risk, then enforcement is too weak. I also urge you to add the council president and vice president to the team drafting the ordinance. Their leadership and perspective would strengthen the process. Finally, I'd like to highlight several areas that could be added or strengthened. Water use thresholds, individual building footprint limits, minimum parcel size, total square footage caps, limits on generator testing hours, power demand thresholds, maximum impervious surface coverage, reduced construction traffic hours to avoid school and rush hour conflicts, annual compliance, I'm almost done. Annual compliance certification tied to an operational license and fee, requirements for LEED or equivalent green building status, cool roof or green roof requirements. Menomonie deserves an ordinance that protects our community, our environment, and our future. We have the chance to build something strong, thoughtful, and lasting. Let's take that opportunity. Thank you for your time and for your service to the city.
Thank you. Public comment is still open.
Johanna Kellner, 1013 Fifth Avenue, East Menomonie, Wisconsin. First of all, I want to thank you all to get that whole process going, and we have a good start, but we're not there yet, and there's a lot of points that need to be added to it. And so I wrote you all an email where I stated a few of them, but there was a lot more, so I'm talking to. So one of the points that's not in that ordinance yet is that it doesn't say anything about tits and tiffs, so there shouldn't be any for those big giants. The severability clause would be a really important point, because if one of the clauses is maybe defective, that it wouldn't be legal, then the whole thing wouldn't be enforceable. So that's a really important point. The impervious surfaces also, it's up on the lake. We can only have 15 to 30% impervious surfaces. And so if we want to just have a little patio, we can't do it because of that restriction. So I think big giants should be restricted to that too. And the no work on only Sundays, that doesn't really justify it either. Holidays at least should be included. There is no time limit mentioned on the generators. Also, there is no time limit mentioned on the construction. There is a few examples where they started building and they only do a little bit at a time because they're afraid that the industry is going to go somewhere else, and it goes on for 10 years. And so you have 3-year limits on other things. Why not put a 3-year limit on that? You can build for 3 years, but no longer. You got to be done by then. On the water usage, I would like to have more explanation on it because it says up to the system capacity. Well, what is the system capacity? We ran out of water already without them, so our system capacity would not support anything like that anyway. And to be able to talk about things like that, it would be great to have town hall meetings where we actually can have a conversation, where I could have a follow-up question. And I think council members should be able to work on that ordinance too, and not just say, yeah, I like it or I don't like it. And so, yeah, we need to be an example for other people and get it right the first time and have a good policy to deter giants like that, that intrude in our way of life. The public should have a little bit more time to respond to the second draft too, that we can actually have time to digest it. I mean, I have had to read it a whole bunch of times to actually understand it. And you want to talk it over with other people too before you make comment on it. Also, an annual license fee for monitoring if they comply or not would make sense. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment is still open.
Good evening. My name is Garrett Wilkinson. I live in the town of Tanner, and you can find my address here on the sheet if that's okay. First of all, I want to thank the city council members, the mayor, and the other members of city government for the work that's gone into this new zoning ordinance. I've been to most of these meetings since the news surrounding the potential data center first broke, and I've heard and been a part of expressing concerns on behalf of the community here in Menomonie. I'm pleased to say that I see most of those concerns, if not all, reflected in this draft ordinance being discussed today as a starting point. For many people, the most personal engagement they are likely to have with offices of the government is through their local administration in the cities and towns where they live. And by that understanding, it is these same local bodies that can serve as the best example for building a government that is transparent, responsive, and accountable to its constituency. I appreciate the effort that has gone into upholding those goals in the ongoing discussion and rulemaking around this contentious project. One of the biggest issues I see from the many municipal and state level government offices addressing the growth of the tech industry in their backyards is the pace and scale that large projects like these present. This industry and the current AI investment push especially present price tags and operational scales that often outstrip the ability of local governments to account for with new and existing regulatory capacity. To this point, while much of the new ordinance meets public concerns I've heard in these meetings over the last 8 months, the biggest gap I see is that the enforcement mechanism for these requirements leans on an existing fine structure in city law, which poses a $500 maximum fine against the violator for each day that a stipulation of the ordinance is violated. Jeff Bezos pays over $1,000 a month for an illegally constructed wallabout around his Beverly Hills estate that is in violation of city ordinance. The cost means nothing to him. Elon Musk's xAI is using highly polluting gas turbine generators to support their data center build-out in Tennessee, receiving only 15 permits and simply continuing to pay fines to operate the other 31 generators in violation of local law to support that project. Data centers have project budgets that scale into the millions or billions of dollars. They have daily operating expenses for resources such as power and water that can outstrip any fines by an order of magnitude. Their fundraising and war chests exceed the annual GDP for many developed countries. For an industry with an ethos of move fast, break things, worry about consequences later, a $500 fine that might seem significant to a coffee shop or auto mechanic here in town is simply below their consideration. It's just the cost of doing business. It's the type of cost that's built into their operating expenses as a minor line item that wouldn't even approach their lobbying budget. To that point, despite xAI facing constant litigation over their violation of local environmental laws, they recently signed an agreement to purchase an additional $2.8 billion worth of generators for similar projects in other states. Fines like these simply do not serve as an appropriate deterrent. I believe that for any ordinance like the one proposed today to serve as a meaningful protection, it must have both monitoring and enforcement capacity that has teeth and a possibility to inflict a real burden on a business that chooses to violate it. As the mayor has said, we cannot legally ban an entire industry from our city, but I would like to see ordinances that will actually be taken seriously by an operator of this size. To that end, I would like changes to the ordinance that would impose scaling fines per day of violation instead of a flat per diem, along with a penalty structure that could result in revocation of operating or occupancy permits for any actor that might choose to flout our laws. I ask you all to consider how we might best protect our community in the face of an industry that, until this bubble pops, has a functionally infinite amount of money to pay for infractions. Any ordinance that would seek to have a tangible outcome must meet the scale that this industry operates at. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Public comment is still open.
Hi, my name is Jessica White. I live at E65026 90th Avenue. I didn't actually come today prepared with something to read to speak. I usually do. But the first thing I want to say thank you for everybody for being here and really taking the time to listen to us. I would suggest, however, a larger room, more seats, or some type of speaker system because we cannot hear you guys outside. It's very frustrating when you have multiple constituents sitting here who cannot hear you. So we ask if once we move from this platform and you guys are actually talking to, please speak loudly. I would also suggest that while it's great to talk to you here today and speak to you, we're not getting any feedback. We're not able to ask follow-up questions. I'm not sure. I can understand maybe there's some fear in having that type of forum, but I would highly encourage you. Most of us just want to talk and listen to what you have to say and then ask follow-up questions without being mute on the other side. I want to start by telling you, I live off of 690th. It surprised me to hear some council members did not realize that that literally means next to the data center that's coming. We don't live across the street, 2 miles down. When I say I live within a half a mile, I will see this thing outside my window. 650th is here, 690th is here, the data center is here. You have multiple families that live on this road. I think a lot of people thought that we lived across the street and down, but we do not. We will see this and it does affect us. So saying that, things I've read it, but I think the things that we really need to see that concern me as a property owner out there is I really want to see the well protection. Even with a closed loop system, I have been reading where some of neighboring wells are running out of water, and it would just relieve my sense living out there that I had some type of protection from the city. We talk about construction hours and noise, light regulation and noise regulation. And the property value we have out there. I don't know if there's some way, I've seen it, that you guys can protect us out there. There's like 7 families that we don't want to be house stuck and never in our lives be able to move without claiming foreclosure or bankruptcy, because this becomes a... I would suggest putting yourselves in not just the shoes of the town member and what's best for the town, but you are representing constituents, and think about, like, if you literally live there, if this was you watching this go in, I'm not saying it has to not go in. What I'm saying is, what would you want to see? What would you want to see as a homeowner living right next door that would help you feel comfortable with the situation and take that into consideration? We need real rules, real monitoring, and real consequences. I really appreciate the gentleman who spoke before me talking about how monetary, it's a drop in the bucket to these companies. You know, 1,000, 5,000, it means nothing. They'll pay it because they can do what they keep doing and still make money hand over fist. Including shutdown. Shutdown should be an option if you can't follow the rules. So that's really about all I have to say, except for this ordinance is new to Wisconsin. I think you guys are setting an example, and there will be other towns, cities, communities that are going to follow us. It's very important that you do this correctly. If that takes time, consideration, and do your due diligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica. Public comment is still open.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay? I hope. All right. I'm Lucy Lammer. Address is E5282 470th Avenue, Menomonie, Wisconsin. Dear City Council, I am here to comment on the proposed draft ordinance for the data center industrial district zoning. Originally, when the public asked for volunteers to assist in writing and presenting ideas for the DC zoning, myself and others did volunteer to persons we knew who were going to be spearheading this project. We were never contacted. I and others would like to know the names of all those who worked on this particular ordinance draft. Frankly, I was stunned when I read this proposed ordinance. It is a green light for a data center. The proposed ordinance is vague and incomplete, fails to address many issues for a multi-million-dollar project, and gives all the power to the data center. Violation fees range from $25 to $500. That's the penalty for a billion-dollar company. I've signed more detailed car rental agreements. This proposal is a mere 8 half-filled pages. Let me give an example what the city is agreeing to. A 400 setback from the building to the lot lines, which means from this podium to the other side of Wilson Park is about 400 feet. So the house on the corner would be that close to a 3-story data with all its noise, lights, and 24/7 construction 6 days a week. And the max violation if they construct on Sundays is $500. A very good deal to work Sundays. So the real question is this: why is the current mayor, who ran his campaign as being against data centers, presenting this limp ordinance? What is the sudden urgency? We are still on a pause, which legally means it can't be built. The project currently doesn't fit any of our city zoning codes. We're not required to create one. Unfortunately, Mayor Crow or one other city council member no vote to the rezoning could have stopped this data center well over a year ago. They refused to listen to the citizens of this community. Instead, Menomonie is now spending thousands of dollars on attorneys for legal advice to stop this data center. Is this where the 6% property tax increase is going? This is just a tip of how much this data center is going to cost the taxpayers in legal fees, natural resources, and our way of life. Thank you.
I'm Blaine Halverson, 334 21st Avenue West. I don't want to do rhetoric. I just want to get as many things out there for you to think about and talk about as I can in a short amount of time. So feel free to jot things down if you need to. Take time to do the job right. Other people have said it, but that's something that's here for me. I also said, set the bar. This is the most publicized ordinance of its kind in the state of Wisconsin. Not only that, I had a call today from a reporter from The Guardian who's been talking to me about this ordinance process since December. And he's still in on this and trying to learn about it and how it's working out and what's going on with it. So this is a national story, what we did. Make deterrence the goal, not just compliance. It's very easy here's rules to protect the community, and that's great. But the mood of the community is they don't want it. So that requires deterrence. And so you need rules that will make people think it's too expensive and too inconvenient to build here. Be bold. Don't be afraid of lawsuits. Other people have said it too. I see the work I do throughout the state in this. I've seen community after community get bullied by a threatened lawsuit into not doing something simple that wouldn't cost them a lot to defend, right? So severability clause, I had that too. Just make sure in this that you have a severability clause so that if there's something that gets struck down, it doesn't put the whole thing at risk. Hold public town halls. But I also said encourage council members to run their own listening sessions in wards. We do need back and forth. This doesn't work. You can't have conversation one way. Okay, most of us were very frustrated. I think there were council members who were frustrated on April 9th because we all thought we were going to get to hear the council talk to each other about this issue. And we still haven't had that opportunity. It'll be a year tomorrow since the last time I heard them talk to each other in depth about this issue. Consider adding voices to the drafting process, a committee that could include some citizens, definitely at very least the council president. Enforcement that has teeth. I was noticing the same thing, $500 is a maximum penalty. $500 a day for a year is $180,000. How many different violations could they have every day for a year and not even spend $1 million on penalties? It's a piece of cake for them. I would say that part of that is one thing I hadn't thought about is there was some conversation about conditional use permits, and I understand the risk of that. But by having the I-4 ordinance, there seems to be an opportunity for potential hybrid, which would be that you have these performance standards, but then within that, you have maybe 4 to 6 measurable shutdown triggers that are part of a conditional use permit within the I-4. So that would be one thing I would suggest. Set a hard power demand capped. People have suggested that this is a PSC thing, but in reality, as I looked this up, the PSC's role is regulating utility rates, infrastructure approval, cost allocation for the utility. They don't have any say in deciding where or how large the data center can be. One source that I read said the PSC lacks direct say in data center construction. And municipal authority confirms that zoning is a tool municipalities have here. You can say, I believe you can say, get your severability clause if you're nervous about it. Okay, I'm almost done. But you can say, we don't want anything more than 5 megawatts, 10 megawatts. A hard water threshold, could be a great thing for a conditional use permit. Tiered size-based definitions so that you could scale with project size. One thing that's a shortcoming of this, I think, is that right now the only data center that could really build is hyperscale because of the setbacks. A small data center couldn't really do it. And I would say 1,500 feet back for any residents. I think that's the least we can do for people. So, all right, thank you.
Public comment is still open.
Hi, Robert Ferris. I live in the town center. My address is on the sheet. So I'd like to thank the city of Menomonie, the council, and the mayor's office for providing the language of the I-4 zoning ordinance prior to the meeting to allow for time to read and digest the information. I believe that transparency in these discussions is essential, that the people of the town of Menomonie and the surrounding areas have a clear picture of how any discussions with a prospective data center progress. Along those lines, I'd like to ask for some clarity on how the requirements laid out in the I-4 zoning ordinance will be enforced, if there's any monitoring the city itself will be doing through a program or to look for violations, or if any of the violations or complaints of potential violations could be reported by occupants of the surrounding area. For enforcement, can there be some language or clarifying documentation on how we'll hold the company accountable? If it's referenced in the city code, what section, or whose jurisdiction this would be? For the people in the area around the proposed location, what is the proper channel they should use to communicate to the city if they feel the restriction in the I-4 zoning is not being followed? In the case of violations, will the actions taken by the city to impose penalties be communicated to the community? Will there be any statutes to protect residents from deterrence by the company or a contracted security company from taking measurements, readings, or videos of the surrounding area to provide that information to the city as a complaint? We, the residents of this area, need to understand that any deal that is agreed to upon will have the necessary mechanisms in place to have our voices heard throughout the process, and that the monitoring of these requirements will be enforced as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment is still open.
Hi, my name is Lenore Mercer. I live at 921 22nd Avenue Northeast. And I'm here too to talk about the data center. And I want to talk about Meta. Meta is the company that's presumably behind the Balloonist LLC. And number one, Meta is responsible for a data center in Cheyenne, Wyoming, who polluted their water. I have a high school classmate that calls me from Wyoming every weekend. And about 3 weekends ago, she said, the data center in Cheyenne, their capital, and it's the Meta data center, just polluted their water. Cheyenne's the capital. Cheyenne's the home of a well-known veterinary hospital and clinic. And I'm sure those people thought they had all their I's dotted and their T's crossed relative to their environmental parameters, but their water's polluted. Number two, it's not just in the United States. Meta has data centers in Europe, and there are data centers there that have resulted in contaminated water, and there are lawsuits. Bad actor, bad actor. Number three, on Thursday, Meta started negotiations with a media company because they want to be their data processor, their AI processor. Well, this company that they went into negotiations with, this media center, has had lawsuits filed against them. They've had to pay fines, $1 million fines, because they were using processing, and what they did, what their work entailed is misinformation, disinformation. So communities, water resources, air resources are put at risk, and there's no say how these AI centers use those resources. Is it to advance good causes or causes that we'd all just vehemently disagree with? Number four, in today's Wisconsin Watch out of Madison, it said that DeForest, which is just outside of Madison in a growing up and coming area, we lived there for about 6 years and we know the area. They just said no to a data center. It was a proposed $12 billion data center, and they just said no. And then in the same Wisconsin Watch today, Grant County just said no to a $10 billion data center because they don't want to take the risk of their resources. And as many ahead of me had said, that the lawsuits are an inconvenience. It's a cost of doing business. And they have the money to pay and the trove of lawyers to pay those lawyers to get them out of trouble or to settle. They don't care. They just want the profits. Business, that's what they're in there for. And 6 Menomonie was listed in today's Wisconsin Watch. And I'll read it. It says that at this time, a data center a data center development proposal is being considered in Menomonie. And so it's being considered, and I agree with a lot of people ahead of me. It's not just the parameters. The people I mentioned thought they had their I's dotted, their T's crossed, but it's the enforcement of it. It's to make it that it's going to be expensive if they breach your I's and your T's on your parameters for the environment. It's something that $1,000 is pocket change. It's something where a data center that's 15 billion is a pocket change. It's a
Lorraine.
whole other
We're at 3.5
realm there.
minutes. We're going to have to ask you
Just
that.
about done.
Okay.
At best, it puts us at risk as a community and citizens. At worst, we could have devastating consequences, and we just felt what it was like not to have water for 3 days. Thank you.
Public comment is still open.
City Council, thank you for having me. I just wanted to take 1 or 2 minutes really quick to try to say my point of view on this.
Excuse me, sir, could you provide your name and address to council?
Sure, 500 12th Ave West, apartment 59, Menomonie, Wisconsin, down by Lucette there.
And your name, please?
Samuel Young.
Thank you, sir. Please continue.
First thing I wanted to say was that this is a terrible, terrible idea. These things are literally a cancer on society. This has never should have gone on this far. We're at a point now where we don't know what you guys are saying, and it's a huge miscommunication. I did a few number crunchings here, and if someone wants to say that I'm wrong, they can call me out on it. But the projected size of the data center is going to be 320 acres, which is over 13 million square feet, which I would say that's fair to say that it's going to be a medium to large, hopefully not hyperscale data center. So then I actually asked AI, well, how much power does a medium to large facility actually use? They use 20 to 50 megawatts of continuous power to power there, and that's just a medium to large. They're doing hyperscale ones that are way bigger. A regular Walmart uses 1 to 2 megawatts of power a day. 1 megawatt can power 800 to 1,000 homes, which means that this facility would be possibly using more energy than every other single home in Menomonie combined, and possibly even adding commercial into that. So I think this has gone on way too far, and I think that you guys are not being upfront with us at all. And we're kind of just talking behind walls and stuff. It's just terrible. No one in the community wants this. It's a cancer on our community. We should not let them plunder our natural resources for this. This is terrible. Basically, yeah. And US data centers at this point use as much electricity as the entire state of Ireland. This is really bad, and I just hope that you guys will realize that we know what's happening and we know what's going on. So if you guys, and that was kind of my final tie-in, was saying that if you guys can, why can't you just put in, because you can in that zoning disclosure, you can easily do that. You could end it today. Why can't you do that to say, we're going to limit this cap on this zoning zone for this much power? You could end this today. Why are we doing this? And I feel like it's just a big dog and pony show where you're trying to say you have questions for us, but we're not actually getting the answers from you guys. So that's basically what I wanted to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Public comment is still open. Anybody else for public comment? Last call for public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on with our meeting. Going down to item 4A, a new business. It's regarding the draft ordinance of the data center industrial I-4 district. Before we get started, I want to make sure that we clarify that this is a draft ordinance and there'll be no vote or no action taken on this today. There is no land that has been zoned to I-4 here in the city, and there's no proposal for rezoning either. And I want to just make sure that we know that there is a proposed tentative timeline for this, and that we have this draft today on August 3rd. September 8th would be the second draft to review with the public. Again, no action taken on that. And then if things look good from there in October, we could have an introduction of the ordinance and referral to Plan Commission, go into Plan Commission at the end of October. Then from there, we would have the first reading in the first meeting of November, the second reading in the next meeting in November, and then in the first meeting in December would be adoption, and that's just tentative, and that's if things go well and if we have everything that we seem to deem fit for this. I also want to make sure that we all realize that we already have an I-4 ordinance here in Menomonie. We have an I-4 ordinance that was passed in December under the previous mayor that has only building heights and setbacks. So the question about urgency is the developer or any developer could apply, and the only thing they would have to meet is building heights and setbacks in the current I-4 ordinance. And so we want to show that we are working on this ordinance and we're working on it diligently. We want to get it right and get it right the first time. We don't want to rush this. And we want to take our time and do it right. And, but also want to make sure we have everything in place to protect our citizens and the community. So with that, Mr. Schofield, do you want to give us a little rundown on this ordinance?
Yeah, so in your packet and on the screen is the existing I-4 ordinance. As the mayor mentioned, the uses are included, building heights, setbacks, lot area, vision clearance, and off-street parking. That's what is in the ordinance as it presently sits. So the proposed ordinance that, again, is in your packet and has been posted since Wednesday, adds a number of requirements, quite a few requirements. The uses has not changed. There's no changes in the uses that are allowed. In the heights, yards, areas, and other requirements, there's, I think we go through, I think it's T, if I recall correctly. Yes. So the height of the building is still at 45 feet. That is our standard for the I-1 zone. We do allow, I believe, 75 feet in our I-3 zone. It doesn't feel right to extend that in this type of a zoning. We do also, in addition to this height restriction, we do have some overlay restrictions that can be more restrictive than this, depending on how close you are to the airport. So this is the proposed height, 45 feet or 3 stories, whichever is least. But as you get closer to the airport, that lowers, I think, down to about 16 feet if you're directly adjacent to the airport. In the current ordinance, we have a 400-foot setback. In this ordinance, we've added an 800-foot setback to generators and chillers. Those are the items that, generally speaking, are the loud portion of the operational an operational data center. The practical effect of this is that the data halls would most likely be constructed at or near that 400-foot setback. And then the backup generators and chillers would be located inside of them. So you would have the buildings themselves as the barrier that that folks had mentioned during the public comments. So distance and blockage helps with noise, which we'll get into in a little bit. That is the same for front yard, rear yard, and side yard setbacks. The lot area, we have a minimum lot size in our code. I believe it's 1 acre, if I recall correctly, in the industrial zone. In this case, we're adopting that, but we're also saying that lot size has to be expanded to accommodate the setbacks above. So what we're trying to avoid is a situation where we create a variance request. If you have 2 codes that conflict with each other, an applicant could apply for a variance, and that would go through the Board of Appeals, not this body. So by adding some additional language in that section E, we're trying to avoid that. The vision clearance that's at intersections. So that would be, I believe that's a 25-foot setback at corners. So you can't have things right in the corner where it would block people's vision from one road to another. Off-street parking, we have done some major improvements to our off-street parking ordinance back in December You folks approved an ordinance change that required that off-street parking be paved, either asphalt or concrete. It has to have curbs so that people don't just kind of expand parking lots on their own. So there's the off-street parking is stronger than it used to be, but we're referencing that other code section. Site lighting, again, in December, we also passed, or you folks also passed a site lighting ordinance that is fairly strenuous. Downlit cutoff lighting is required. The foot candles, or the way you measure light at the property line, can't exceed half a foot candle. And then there's some limitations on the color temperatures. Bright blue lights have a very high Kelvin. 4,000 Kelvin is on the yellow red end of the spectrum. So trying to reduce some of the abrasiveness of site lighting. Landscaping. So we have a landscaping code that requires 1 tree for every 100 feet of perimeter of a site. In this ordinance, we've adopted our landscaping code, but said that number of trees has to be increased from 1 per 100 to 1 per 25 feet. So that's, we quadrupled the number of trees that are required as that to provide some additional kind of breaking up of the perimeter of the sites. That code also requires that trees be a minimum of 1.5 inches for deciduous trees and 4.5 feet for coniferous trees. This says that at least half of the trees that are required have to be 3-inch diameter and 9 feet to try to, we don't want a bunch of little tiny trees next to a very large building, and that, someday they'll look good, but we want them to look bigger sooner. No portion of the site may be irrigated turf grass. We also require that, and suggest that deep-rooted native plants or non-irrigated turf grass should be used in areas that are not used for buildings and parking lots and driveways and that sort of a thing. We have in our code, our standard code requirement that storage yards be screened from adjacent roadways is provided in the other portion of the code. We're just adopting that here. Water. So we have water demands shall not in the city's sole discretion exceed system capacity when including all other demands unless the developer at his sole cost and expense pays for construction of additional capacity. That may require an additional well, that may require additional storage. We have in this ordinance, and I'll get to it a little bit later on how the city can review that. The property or the developer is responsible for increasing that demand or that capacity. Data hall cooling equipment shall minimize the use of water. There are 2 very high water usage types, direct heat exchange to wastewater, where they dump heat into the drinking water and then dump it to the sanitary sewer. From a sanitary sewer perspective and from a water perspective, that's not a process that we have any intention of allowing. Additionally, the evaporative cooling is another one that has been used in other areas but isn't appropriate. Large periodic water draws. So with a closed loop system, the day-to-day usage is quite low. The same water is working through the process. It's gaining heat, it's losing heat, it's gaining heat, it's losing heat. There are days in which there is a large draw of water. We don't want those to occur during the summer when we have other irrigation demands. We have other things where the demand is higher. So we've said, except for firefighting, that large periodic draws shall not occur between May 1 and September 1. The last is the developer has to provide a water conservation plan. They have to estimate the amount of water they're using on a per minute, per day, per year basis. I'll come back to that a little later in the process. The developer is then required to update that water conservation plan every 3 years. So the technology in this area is improving. The data centers that were built 3 years ago or 6 years ago or 9 years ago are vastly inefficient versus the ones that are being built here. So with this, we would require that they update that water conservation plan every 3 years and implement those improvements to drive the water usage lower. From a wastewater perspective, we have some of the same issues. The wastewater from this site would go to a lift station on Packer Drive. It would go through a force main. It would go through to a lift station on Cherry Blossom Lane. It would go through a gravity sewer and about 3 miles to our treatment plant. So we would require them to not exceed any of those sections, or provide either additional capacity or temporary storage on site so they can reduce it. They can discharge it at a lower rate. Again, with a closed loop system, those purging and refilling of the system is when you'd see high wastewater demands, and those can be at a reasonable time. We can schedule those, or they can schedule those. We do have in our ordinance, I think we passed it in May, a PFOA and PFOS limit. That ordinance that we passed in May had a compliance date of January 1 of 2029, if I recall correctly. In this ordinance, we say that PFOS and PFOA limits, those start effective immediately. There's no reason to start using PFAS and stop using PFAS in 2.5 years. Stormwater management, we do have a very robust stormwater management ordinance. The city has enforced it for many years. In most cases in our industrial park, it requires infiltration of 100% of the stormwater runoff from that site. You look at the large stormwater basins near Walmart and Bill's Distributing and Anderson Windows. Those are all infiltration basins that infiltrate virtually all the stormwater runoff that's created from those sites that do have a fair amount of imperviousness. Noise. So we do have a construction noise ordinance that limits, I'm just going to read it directly from the other ordinance. So erection, demolition, alteration, repair of buildings, as well as operation of any pile drivers, excavating equipment, pneumatic hammers, derricks, power or electric hoist, chainsaw, power mower, or any other residential garden tools, the use of which is attended by noise, which tend to disturb the comfort, quiet, and repose of reasonable person therein or within the vicinity, shall be permitted between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 o'clock p.m. So 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. is a very wide range. That's certainly something that we can discuss. One of the comments that you heard today said that we should also limit the years in which construction can occur. Those two things, you can't squeeze construction to go from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then also tell them to get it done faster. You can't, those two things can't both happen. They have to have time to do the construction. So either we leave the hours as they are in the other city code, or we squeeze those and then understand that that's going to extend the construction period by years. So there is a balancing act there that this body will have to consider. There is no right now in our code any exemptions for holidays or Sundays. We did include Sundays in here. I think including holidays is appropriate as well. And we'll certainly get that in the second draft. Operational noise at the property line shall not exceed 5 decibels louder than the ambient noise levels. So in almost every ordinance that I've seen of this type, there's an ambient noise study that's done at the start of or prior to construction that establishes what the noise level is on the property. That will, of course, change over time. The interstate, makes different noises at different times of day, different times of the year. The traffic on County Highway B makes different noise different times of the year. And so understanding what that noise level is to start with, that ambient noise level is important. And then in this ordinance, it caps the increase at 5 decibels. 3 decibels is about the point in which a human can even tell the difference. If you had a sound at 63 decibels and a sound at 60 decibels, most humans can't tell the difference between those two. You can tell the difference between 60 and 70, but 60 and 63 is very hard for someone to determine that there is in fact a difference. 5 decibels was based on a St. Louis ordinance that I had located with Blaine Halverson's assistance. They had set their increase, their delta at 5 decibels. Developer shall provide noise mitigation plan that includes the ambient noise levels, monitoring data, estimated noise levels of the property line, assuming that all backup generators are operating, and best management practices for noise mitigation. They'll install, operate, and maintain noise mitigation equipment or noise monitoring equipment and provide those results to the city in no less than quarterly. If the operational noise exceeds the requirements therein, the developer shall update the noise mitigation plan and implement best practices to bring it into compliance. So that 5 decibel limit is the cap. And then if they were to exceed that, they would have to do improvements. Some of those improvements include building sound walls, reducing the level that the cooling equipment operates. A motor running at 99% is a lot more noisy than a motor running at 87%, something like that. Obviously, that changes how the water system cools, but when you're running things right at the red line, it gets quite a bit louder. Traffic. So we're going to require a traffic mitigation plan. They have to do pre-construction counts. They have to make an estimate of construction traffic and permanent traffic, and then provide recommendations for temporary traffic controls and permanent traffic controls. Some of these that have been installed, there is quite a bit of traffic from a construction site. So I have seen a number of these that have installed a temporary signal at a location at the entrance point of the facility that after construction may not need to be there and can be removed. Depending on the level of traffic that might be required going forward, that signal may need to be made into a permanent signal, something like that. But the traffic impact analysis would suss that out. We do have in here that there will be specific traffic or specific construction routes to and from the site, and that anything exceeding 20,000 pounds follows that construction traffic. At the start of construction, we would require an analysis of the pavement on the roadway, and so that at the end of the project, we can compare that. If the pavement has been deteriorated during that construction, then we can require them, and that's covered a little bit later. We can require them to mill and overlay that roadway so that we're not deteriorating the roadway unnecessarily. Groundwater. I think people have some pretty reasonable concerns about groundwater. We have in the ordinance right now, and this is section P, that existing permitted wells can continue to be used for dust control. So dust is also an issue during construction. Existing permitted wells can be used for dust control during construction, provided that the monthly volume pump does not exceed the average monthly withdrawal over the most recent 5 years. So everyone with a high capacity well has to report at the end of each year, a monthly pumped total. So we have that data or the DNR has that data and can provide it to us for wells that exist on construction or on sites like this. We don't want them to be pumping more than that because presumably with the irrigation wells that are on some of these sites, the wells around there the water levels has kept up with the existing pumping. That is strictly for the construction phase. At the end of construction, all wells on the property shall be abandoned and sealed prior to issuance of final occupancy. So those wells would go away when the building becomes operational. So there would not be any wells on the property. And then there would be no new wells constructed on the property. There are waste disposal systems on some properties. Any existing waste disposal system, so this is like septic tanks or septic fields, holding tanks, that sort of thing, have to be removed prior to final occupancy. We do not want them discharging wastewater from this type of a use into the ground in that vicinity or in any vicinity. And then no new on-site waste disposal systems shall be constructed on the property. So they can't use a septic field or a holding tank on the property. Backup generators. So one of the issues with some of these sites is that they've used generators essentially as a stand-in for electrical power from the utility. I know Gretchen has given me a couple of examples where they have hundreds of generators on the property. That is certainly not the intent here. Backup generators shall be limited to backup emergency use only. I think one of the comments that Blaine had to put a cap on that is entirely reasonable in terms of what is testing and commissioning. My office is at the south end of this building. Our generator runs once a week at 5 p.m. for, I don't know, 20 minutes. Generators do need to run occasionally to do their own testing, but we can set reasonable standards on how long a test is. We don't want a test that has to last for 3 weeks. That's not a test anymore. That's just operation. So the facility cannot commence construction until electric service is provided to the site, and the generators may not be used as a power source in the event of delay of the electrical service. So if there would need to be for most large facilities, data centers, and including other facilities, electrical upgrades may need to be made. They can't run it for the first 6 months of its life on generators only while they're waiting for a utility to extend electrical service to it. Backup generator tests shall be completed between the hours of 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, so they're not running at 2 a.m. and being loud in the middle of the night for no reason. Backup generators, fuel tanks shall have double-walled or exterior containment. Most generators these days are either natural gas or diesel. Diesel tanks are on the bottom, and they have double walls. The natural gas don't store equipment or don't store fuel on site. They just pull from the grid. Electrical capacity. So the developer shall provide a written confirmation from the electric utility that it has or will have sufficient electrical capacity to serve the building or premises. Bonds. So we have in this draft 2 bonds, a reclamation bond. So if the developer stops paying their property taxes or ceases operations, or I suppose both, for more than 3 years, the city is holding a bond that would allow us to demolish that facility. So we don't have a rotting husk out on the Rusk Prairie, no pun intended. That would allow us to demolish the building, remove the parking lots, driveways, storage yards, bring it back to a pre-development condition. That bond is 120% of the estimated cost for that. The cost would have to be updated every 3 years because as you move forward, a bond that's estimated in, say, 1990 is not going to cover the costs in 2026. So they would have to update those costs every 3 years. And then we would have an easement onto the property to do the demolition of those facilities. A road protection bond. So in addition to the reclamation bond, we also have a road protection bond. So we have 120% of the estimated cost to mill and repave the entire width and length of the construction roadway from the site to Interstate Highway 94, wherever this site might be. The final is the zoning code violations. We do have a code section that talks about violations. We can certainly look at expanding or increasing the amount of the fines therein, but it would be a per day violation, and each violation would be a separate violation. So it's not just $500 per day, it's $500 times however many violations that we might be able to prove in court to cover that. So those are the requirements of the site. The next thing is, so there's some discussion of, we're not there yet. We don't have a rezone application in front of us. We're working through this process. But we want to understand when we get to that point, what are we going to do? So generally speaking, zoning codes are, I want to build R1. I want to build single family residential neighborhood. I request a rezone to R1. You don't come in with the final plans of every building that's being constructed in that neighborhood. You don't come in with final construction plans for the utility extensions and the roadways and all of that. You're saying, I intend to comply with your zoning code. Please grant me with this. Now, in this case, there are some pretty reasonable concerns that we need to understand before we even look at that rezoning. And so in this section 10-23-3, we have the requirements for a rezoning application. Number one, an identification of the proposed end user. Number two, a conceptual site plans showing boundary, property lines, location, extent of all proposed improvements, setback distances, and then the landscaping plan. Conceptual building plans, so the floor plan, elevation views of each face of the building, the water conservation plan, so that as folks have mentioned, we need to make sure that we can accommodate that water usage. Until we see their water conservation plan, we can't determine that. So how would we proceed with a rezone application with that unknown? Their noise mitigation plan. So again, this would be the ambient noise study, and then their estimated levels at the property line complying with that 5 decibel limit. Traffic mitigation plan. So this is the traffic impact analysis, and then the electrical capacity letter. So those are all the requirements that would be required to even get to the table of a rezone being considered by this body, by the Plan Commission, and back to this body. We can certainly discuss other requirements that you would want to see in that section, but I think those are a bare minimum of things that we should include in here as a requirement to even consider the rezone to this I-4. I think it's worth noting we have no I-4 at this time. There are no proposed rezones to I-4. So everything that could ever come into the I-4 has to go through this rezoning process.
Thank you, David. Great job presenting and great job with the footnotes as well. In this draft I-4 ordinance, you'll see that we reference other city ordinances, and we do that for two purposes. One, if we were to write every ordinance out in this word for word, and then we change one of the city ordinances, like the stormwater ordinance that's over 40 pages, we would then have to make the modification in the stormwater ordinance, and then we have to come back to this and make the modification in this ordinance as well. And secondly, we do this because this ordinance would be 120 to 150 pages if we typed everything out in there. It is more than just the 8 pages that you see. I encourage you to look at the footnotes and look at the different ordinances in our code. And you'll see that the stormwater is much more restrictive than anything that the DNR would have you comply with. And we got good bones here. We're far from finished. But I appreciate everyone's time on this, and we'll open it up for discussion. Ryland.
Well, my first question is, let's say 2 years ago, somebody wanted to make a data center in Menomonie. We would have had to allow that. But what kind of zoning 2 years ago would allowed them to build something? And like where and under what, this is a lot more restrictive than what we had then.
This is quite a bit more restrictive than we had then. So I can't speak for every data center in every community in Wisconsin. I believe that a vast majority of them have been just considered warehouses and went under whatever zoning classification allowed warehouses in that community. Everyone's zoning is a little bit different. We didn't have any definition of a warehouse, and so I think they would have been quite reasonable to argue that they were a warehouse.
And how are we defining data center in this ordinance? Because from what I understand, it's, 24/7 Telecom has a small data center as part of their office building. Would that fall under this? Because I might have missed it, but I didn't see any definition of what's required, or if there's any way for somebody to get around these requirements by saying, oh, nope, see, we have 3 offices in this building as well. Now it's an office building and not.
Yeah, so the definition of a data center was changed on January 6th, in the previous ordinance that you folks approved. That's in a separate that's not in 1023. It's in 10.1, I think, is where our definitions for data centers are. Going off of memory, I believe it says that a structure primarily used for the operation and manipulation of data. You asked at the last meeting when we talked about this for about 24/7. 24/7's server room is approximately 10% of their building. It would not fall under this ordinance.
Okay.
Similarly, Stout has server rooms. We have a server room here at City Hall. Those are not data centers because that's not the primary use of that structure.
And then a couple more questions here. The large periodic draw of water, that doesn't have any definition of what large is.
Yeah, we could certainly add something to that to define that. We would probably say over 5,000 gallons a day. We would probably look at our code and verify what, like in our sewer ordinance, I think we talk about large users. And I believe that's 5,000 gallons in our sewer ordinance. We'd probably use that as the definition of a large.
Okay. And I guess my final question, at least for now, is on the noise violations. I know in talking to the police chief who was here, that he's mentioned that enforcing our current noise ordinance is difficult because it's defined as what a reasonable person and doesn't have, numbers on it, which, what's reasonable to one person is not reasonable to another. And current noise complaints kind of get left because they don't hold up in court because it doesn't have any numbers to go along with them. So
that's why we have a numeric requirement, subjective requirements, and what a reasonable person would think is reasonable is difficult to enforce. That's why we have the ambient noise study plus the 5 decibel delta.
But that ambient noise, over ambient noise wouldn't apply to the construction phase.
Correct.
Seems to be one of the big concerns.
It would not.
So do we have any
Construction of any type is loud,
Yeah.
is annoying. Whatever is built on any property in the city, the construction phase is not the most pleasant phase. I say that at every one of our pre-construction meetings for construction. When I talk to the residents, this is not going to be the most fun summer of your life. We'll get it done quickly and we'll move on. To expect that we would do construction of anything without noise, we should cease development of any type.
So is there any way to tighten up that noise ordinance so it is enforceable instead of as vague as it is?
Are you talking about the general noise ordinance?
Yeah. That the construction phase is referencing?
Well, the construction phase specifically says you can't use loud equipment, and it has a list of that equipment. It cannot be used between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. It's not based on subjective. It's saying you cannot use that equipment during those times.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I had for now. Oh, thanks.
Diane?
I have a question. Is there a maximum amount of power that the grid can support?
We don't regulate electricity. I couldn't answer that question on what the grid could.
Point of order. Public cannot speak during these. No. Yep. Thank you. Go ahead, Gretchen.
I have quite a bit. But I guess I'll just run through my list and then the questions will come out of that quick. I'll be as brief as I can. Environmental impact statements, actual studies at the start of a project isn't addressed. I of course just wanted to put that in there so that we're not forgetting that kind of thing. With regards to that, and should include the property owners are not addressed well enough because the effects to the surrounding property owners that are existing at present, that there's various kinds of adverse effects, and that should be part of the consideration upfront, I think. With regards, there's financial, there's environmental, there's water. There was, we'll go to water. I saw some conflicting, when I was reading, I was looking at K with the water. There was about the additional, I don't know if it was a statement that I wrote about if there is additional capacity needed. Like if they dig a well or whatever, that's coming from the same aquifer. So that capacity, that additional capacity, but also there was a statement later that said additional, no new wells would be dug during the operational phase. So I feel like those are conflicting. The no new wells versus the, if they need it, they got to pay for it. Component earlier with the water. So I'm not sure if it is conflicting, but
It is not. So it says no
Okay.
new wells shall be constructed on the property. We have no intention of building a well in an industrial neighborhood, particularly out near Rusk where there's contamination from Lentz fertilizer
yeah.
moving towards the river. We wouldn't put a well on this property.
So with regards to the capacity, you're just talking about adding main lines from city water? That they would pay
It
for?
depends on what their level of usage might be. It may be an additional well, it may be well number 10 that we have started to plan for, depending on what level of usage they
And they would buy it, like they buy a portion of that capacity?
would construct the well.
It would construct, okay. Okay, that clarifies what that meant. There's not really a, I know we don't want to label which renewable energy, but there's not much conversation about renewable energy usage or a percentage or a incentive to use renewable energy. Thought that should be thought about perhaps. There's not really a square footage limit. Did I see? No.
We don't have square footage limits in any of our zoning ordinances.
Okay,
Walmart distribution is a 1 million square feet.
okay. I mean, is there anything stopping us from having one now for this unique?
I think
I-4?
what, if you go down the road of maximum lot sizes, maximum building sizes, what you're gonna do is you're gonna create a situation where they create individual lots and individual buildings, and they're gonna end up with the same size
Yeah.
site as they would have.
And that's exactly how I've been trying to read this, as if I was a multinational corporation that's trying to do things the cheapest possible. And I recognize that we're trying to help us write, we're all trying to write this to catch that from not happening. But if possible, the more teeth conversation, I have it written all over from before I got to the meeting. There needs to be more with regards to enforcement and not so that we're having to back and forth constantly with the company throughout the years. And like an agreement that is followed. We're not waiting for their, I don't know, corporate good graces. And we're actually taken seriously and not just somebody to work around. Noise, there's the construction time limits. I understand a data center would be a 24/7 operation. And there, and the generators, I guess, during operation, has the time limit as well. I'm a little worried about, I don't have it offhand, but there's been recent stories, data coming out about the vibrational and the noise affecting the animals within a pretty large radius, and thereby also affecting, I just found this out last week, plants, because of the disruption to the pollinators and basically the entire ecosystem, due to this hum vibration that's going on. I don't have multiple studies on that, and I don't have information, but just bringing it up so that it's brought into the conversation. And we have the PFOAs and PFOS limits with regard to other contaminants, especially with the discharge. And somebody had brought up earlier on the comments about the contamination that's occurring. I just want to make sure that we're really trying to put the parameters around that, because I mean, once we lose the water, and I'm sure there's new ways coming online where we don't actually have to use treated water, that'd be great. And fresh water, if there's other ways of cooling that is better for the environment, that'd be wonderful. But I'll get to some actual questions. And then
Can I address the wastewater?
Yeah.
So our wastewater ordinance has a list of, I think, about 15 different contaminants that have caps.
okay, I didn't delve into that, dive into it.
Mostly heavy metals.
Okay,
Each of them has a cap, mostly based on our wastewater permit. We just lowered the mercury cap from 1 to 0.025 milligrams per liter back in
Okay.
May when we added the PFOS. So we do have, obviously, as the mayor mentioned, we didn't copy every ordinance, because if we make changes to those ordinances, we want them to perpetuate.
yeah,
into this
and
one.
I forgot about that when I was scribbling my notes. The question I did have is, when does the water conservation plan, the 3-year start, during construction or the start of operation?
They would have to provide the water conservation plan as
For both
for the
components?
rezone. So before
Okay.
construction even starts.
And that conservation plan is going to have different portions with construction and
Yes.
operation.
Yeah, because dust control is, you don't necessarily need dust control 10 years down the line, but you need it during construction.
Right. I like the portion with, separating out the construction. I still feel like limiting, having a construction limit of a reasonable amount of time. 3 years sounded like a great number. I understand about construction, maybe 4 years, but having a construction limit, because they're gonna, I feel like if I was a company and I was trying to save money and I was trying to use the system as best, that's most beneficial to my, stakeholders and whatnot, I might be calling it construction or using extended timelines for construction while operation is starting. And I think it was started to be addressed, but I would like to see some construction limits, because that, especially with noise and dust and a lot of that construction has a completely different footprint. But I've taken too much time. So thank you.
No, great questions. And, we've been using an environmental attorney for this, and been using Larry Kay. I'll slaughter his last name, but Larry was a attorney that was on the community side for the sand mines and the sand fracking. Larry was on the community side of the data centers now, and before that, he was on with the KFOS, also with big corporate farms as well. So he's very in tune to these kind of ordinances and protecting. And he couldn't be available today to be at this meeting, and we're hoping to have him at future meetings to answer some of these questions of what can and can't we regulate with energy, and what can't we, regulate with renewables and all that. So we can't answer everything today, but we hope to have Larry in attendance going forward so he can answer some of these questions for us.
And I do appreciate the start. I agree that we need more teeth, and it is a good start. And thank you for doing all the work as well on that. But there needs to be more.
Cody.
Thanks. So a lot of people have talked about framing this ordinance as a deterrent. Is there, and maybe this would be a Larry question, attorney question, but is there any risk in calling it a deterrent? Like, could it be overturned at some point just by being like, say, oh, this ordinance is discriminatory, or it's targeting this one particular business, targeting this one particular user or use, and then the whole thing gets invalidated? Is there any issue with that sort of framing? That's my main question.
I'll try to tackle that, Cody. So there's a risk in anything that we do, whether we're creating an ordinance or some other kind of rule. To go into a discussion on risk and litigation is something we don't necessarily want to be talking about in open. If it was us in a private situation where we're talking with our attorneys, we don't want to be talking about potential issues that we could get sued for, and what the strategy would be for the petitioner to file a lawsuit. So I will leave it at this. Anything we do, whether it's something with zoning or creating an ordinance or a policy, there's always some potential risk. That is probably not quite the answer you're looking for, but that is a fact.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's, kind of what I expected, but I just wanted to see if there was anything specifically regarding that. A couple of other things. I'm very interested in whether or not we'd be able to force them to shut down if they break the ordinance. There's been a lot of talk about enforcement, fines not being enough, whether or not we can shut them down, if they breach our rules. I'm also curious, so the ordinance would require various plans, like a water conservation plan. Are those plans enforceable? Because say they provide a plan that says they're going to do one thing, circumstances change a little bit, they cut corners on what they were going to do. Is that something we would consider an ordinance violation?
So we would follow up with the rezone with a development agreement that codified those plans and the requirement to update those plans into an agreement with the city.
Okay. Sweet. And then I guess a request for, going forward, I would be really interested in kind of having some specific reasoning laid out for anything that gets left out of the ordinance that was included in the community resolution that Blaine brought forward. Because there were a lot of things in there that were good, some things that maybe aren't fit for a zoning ordinance. I just want to be very clear on kind of what those things are, what was considered, what was ruled out for legal reasons. So I'm very excited to talk with Larry when he's able to be here. And then I also wanted to sort of make a statement that I think a few in the public made, which is that we obviously don't want to invite a lawsuit, but I also think that with regard to this, we need to think outside of the box and be a little brave with this in protecting the community from these giant data centers. I think if we do get, targeted by lawsuits for being too protective, that more people are going to be on our side than not. So I just want to put that out there. We shouldn't, be too afraid. We should try to do something a little bit more bold.
to address a couple of those things that you said, Cody, as well as other alderpersons here and the crowd as well, we can easily talk about shoring up what we can do for enforcement, fees, forfeitures, those sorts of things. I think that is certainly something that's very simple. I also think you can feel good as alderpersons that you're taking a very unique step here with this I-4 zoning amendment by providing a lot of these guidelines. I think if you look around the state, this is very unique. You are not seeing a lot of communities do this, so you're really blazing the trail. And so I think one or two people in the crowd had said about being bold. I think this is a very bold step for you and everybody else in the community. You can feel good at that. I also feel there are protections for us as far as creating zoning to put in those guardrails. And so, yeah, certainly someone could challenge those things in court and whatnot, but I think you can feel comfortable in being able to create those kinds of guidelines to try to make sure something fits within our community and something that's desirable within our community.
Any other questions? Camden.
Is there any way to add into like writing ordinance that there has to be community engagement of some sort, like a deeper conversation? Because I feel like everyone wants to be able to have more discussion, not just like the community, but I feel like we also want to be able to have more discussion. And I don't know how that could possibly, I don't know. But I just, if it was possible.
I think this is really, really a big part of it right here. So not necessarily in part of an ordinance, but by having these discussions, having these items agenda'd for community input, as well as for this conversation taking place. You certainly are more than welcome to meet with constituents and engage with them, or even if people don't necessarily live in the city, but still having those kinds of conversations. They don't necessarily have to be codified in ordinance. I think that's just an extension of your public service, much like with city staff working with the public that'll come and ask questions. As far as other events, the mayor has talked about holding some town hall type sessions to bring in some information. So there's certainly possibilities to do it. This is the primary way to be able to bring in information, as well as what you can do on your own as alderpersons and carrying out your functions as an elected official.
I think slowing down the process on some of these things, and we've talked about different policies of doing annexations and rezones separately, right? And so that you would have just an annexation vote and just a rezone vote to separate those out, and making sure that we're going up to our allotted time. I know Jeff Luther asked for, an extension and getting it to, a later date and using all 90 days. So having some policies like that, and not just referring it to Plan Commission and going straight to Plan Commission and then, on the next agenda, but that we give some time and slow play some of these things to give the community more of a voice is helpful as well. So more to come on the policy end on that also. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I have a comment. This whole thing has been just eating at me for the last year, and a lot of the community members out here have been very upset. A year ago in August, our mayor, Matt Crow, sat next to me here and told everybody, we are not voting on a data center, when it said right in the minutes of or in the packet that we had in front of us, that this was requested by the landowners and Balloonist LLC. And we had a former council member who also met with community members and gave them hopes that she was going to help stop this. And she ended up What?
Point of order, we're not going to discuss past,
You
votes.
stopping me?
We have to stay on topic, and the topic is on the
Topic
I-4.
of this data center.
This is not on the data
Meeting
center.
Tonight,
Jeff Luther, point of order.
back in August.
We're not talking about past votes and past council members. We
Okay.
are talking about the I-4 ordinance and this draft ordinance.
Well, I just want to thank community members who got up and spoke. Lucy Lammer, she hit the nail on the head about how much thousands of dollars we could have saved the staff time and attorney fees if this thing would have been shot down last August. And Matt Crow, you ran your campaign on a no data center. And now that you're the mayor, why are we even putting this on the agenda? I would like to make a move. I would move to make a motion to table this discussion and any further discussion on the I-4 ordinance in the future.
So Luther, this item was not put on the agenda for action. It's discussion only. So we cannot take motions at this time.
We already have an I-4 ordinance in play. The only thing that's in there is building heights and setbacks. A developer, this developer or any other developer could apply for an I-4 zoning for a data center. And the only thing they would have to meet is building heights and setbacks. So this gives us more restrictions and more ability to say no to a potential development than just building heights and setbacks.
If that land would have been left at agriculture out there, we wouldn't even have a data center interested in it. And then we would have had time to create a decent ordinance for a data center.
If we stop
Our-
talking about this right now, it's just going to be pushing it under the rug and putting it away for a different period of
Our
time.
past-
We
our
can't just
former
stop
mayor-
talking about it.
our
We have
former
of
mayor
order.
had a
Stop
three-year
talking over me.
plan.
Point of order.
Stop talking over me.
We are going to have an orderly meeting here. We're going to follow Robert's Rules of Order. We're not going to talk out of turn. And we're going to stick to agenda items. I don't care if you agree, but it will be understood. And we're going to have respectful conversations and respectful, orderly meetings. Any further discussion in regards to the I-4 ordinance? Seeing none, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Council will be back at 8:42.
Walk over me again and see what happens.
All that stuff.
He doesn't know who he's fucking with.
Moving on with our meeting, we'll head down to item in new business 4B. Proposed resolution 2026-21, a resolution adopting and approving amendment number 3, the project plan for tax increment district number 14. Mr. Schofield, can you give us an update on this, please?
Yeah, so in your ordinance, there's a memorandum from me and then a project plan and finally a resolution. I think it's worth noting we have a couple of new members. Tax increment districts are kind of a hard concept. So I will do a very quick overview of a tax increment district. In a tax increment district, the TID is created to bring forth incentives and improvements that would benefit a particular property more than could be done without the TID. So in this case, a property, and this is not specific to TID number 14, but a property has a baseline value. Over time, the city does improvements using the increment that's created by that. So that's that purple area to incentivize development in a certain area. Once those projects are done, that purple area has covered the cost of the improvements that are needed for that TID. The TID goes away, the TID is closed, and then that additional value and the additional taxes that come off of that TID go to all of the taxing jurisdictions. So essentially, we're taking funds that would otherwise go to the school, the VOTEC, the county. We're using them for purposes to create the incentives to bring development to a certain area. And then at the end of it, we're releasing that back to all of the taxing jurisdictions. Property owners within a TID still pay taxes the same as anybody else. The school district still, for instance, school district, county, the VOTEC, they all still get the taxes that they got when the TID was created. They just don't see the increase until the TID is closed. So TID number 14 was created in 2004, I believe. It is located, it's this orange, maybe salmon. My wife would be very disappointed in me. The TID number 14 is in the northeast portion of the city near exit number 41. It covers the old Thunderbird Mall, now the shops off Broadway. It includes Quick Trip Now, Culver's, and up into the Jeep dealership. So the changes that are proposed in this amendment number 3, include a number of things. Number 1 is we're looking to add a 0.3 acre boundary amendment. So Quick Trip purchased a small chunk of what used to be Denny's. The Chipotle that's under construction did not need all of the area that Denny's was using. So Quick Trip purchased a small 0.3 acre chunk. You can't have a parcel that's partially in and partially out of a TID because it creates a accounting nightmare. So we're proposing to add that small parcel that Quick Trip is purchasing from Chipotle. The next is that back in 2004, when this was created, this wasn't an option, but now TIDs can fund projects within a half a mile of their boundary, as long as those improvements benefit the TID. And so in this case, this TID did not have that because it was created prior to when that was an option. It was not added with amendment number 1 and amendment number 2 for whatever reason, but we're proposing to add it here. The specific reason that we're proposing to add it here is that we have funds available in TID number 14. We would like to reconstruct Heller Road. At your next meeting, we'll be coming back with bids for Heller Road. Heller Road would obviously benefit the TID. It would extend water so that it could eventually be looped to the west end of West Elm. The roadway improvements would directly impact the Excel property that's within TID number 14. And then we would be adding sidewalks that would also benefit the TID. We would also be adding project costs for the Oak Avenue sidewalks and Heller Road. Oak Avenue was reconstructed or extended about 10 years ago. And for whatever reason, the sidewalk was not added. We do have folks that want to go to Culver's or Quick Trip and they don't have the ability to walk right now. So we'd be adding sidewalk there. So we've updated our project costs for that. the final is that we are required to update whenever you do an amendment, you're required to update the, not quite sure why I can't, there we go. You're required to update the cash flow projection to show that the TID would in fact pay off by the end of the deadline. This projection that it was prepared by Ellers shows that the TID would pay off by 2032, which is the normal deadline of this. I would point out that these projections are fairly conservative. They don't show any increase in property value over time. They did include the Culvers, which was just constructed this year, finished this year, that we would have taxes paid in 2 years once the value is established. So that is included in here. But over time, obviously, properties generally appreciate and property taxes generally appreciate on a property. So this doesn't figure any of that into the thing. It also assumes that our tax rate will stay level for the next 6 years, which again, in the past few years, that has not been the case. So I think this is a fairly conservative estimate, but it does show that the project would pay off within that period. Before you, in your packet is the actual amendment itself. I won't go through every page, but the 4 things that I just mentioned are included in there. This was reviewed by the Plan Commission last week and recommended approval unanimously. A copy of their resolution is included in the packet. So they recommended this unanimously at their meeting on July 27th. It comes before you folks to consider proposed resolution 2026-21. If you approve it, it then goes back to what's called a joint review board that includes the representative of the county, representative of the school district, representative of the VOTEC, because on that slide that I showed you where those funds are being controlled within the TID for a period, we need to run that by them to see that they concur. We did do a preliminary review with them a week and a half ago or so. There weren't any major concerns listed, but they do have to approve it. And that would go before them, I believe, on August 13th, if I recall correctly. So what I would recommend is a motion to approve proposed resolution 2026-21, a resolution adopting and approving amendment number 3 to the project plan for tax increment district number 14, City of Menomonie, Wisconsin.
Thank you, Mr. Schofield. Does anyone care to make a motion regarding the proposed resolution? Lee Schwebs.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lee. We got a motion. We got a second. Chad Schlew.
Please, I second Lee's motion, sorry.
We got a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Or Chad, you go ahead.
I'm just curious, it's an awful small area. Is Quick Trip planning on doing anything with that, or they just want to own it, or?
At this point, I don't think they have any plans for it. I think they don't like to be hemmed in, so they saw an opportunity to grab a couple of tenths of an acre and they took it.
And then is there city water? How far does city water go downhill that road? Is like 10 Terra Apartments on city water already?
Santerra is the last facility on city water.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Additional questions? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote for this, please.
Pickard.
Yes.
Schwebs.
Yes.
Gens.
Yes.
Hargrove.
Yes.
Schlew.
Yes.
Erdman.
Yes.
Sommerfeld.
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Yonko.
Yes.
Motion passes. Heading down to item 4C is the purchasing of a new sludge truck. Mr. Schofield, can you bring us up to date on this, please?
Yes, approximately a year and a half ago, we had an agreement that this body looked at. I think it was in December of 24 to work with ConAgra to construct a dissolved air flotation system. They had been discharging quite a bit of fats, oils, and greases to our wastewater treatment plant, which was causing problems. They are a large company, but we upheld our ordinances and worked out an agreement for them to pay 100% of the cost of this facility. part of the operations facilities that we have to collect this fat oil and grease that comes off of the dissolved air flotation device. We have to transport it over to the treatment plant and discharge it to our digester. We looked at different ways of doing this, pumping it and that sort of a thing, but it does tend to congeal. And so pumping it through ground that's 60 degrees all year round would come out with cake batter on the other end. So the decision was made to purchase a new sludge truck, fill the sludge truck. We have enough storage that I think it was every 3 days, but we would probably most likely do it every day, discharge it into the digester, and ConAgra would pay for the truck. So we did a bid. We sent out a request for bids. We had 3 bids from Premier Truck, and then I can't recall whoops, I think I have it in here. Premier Truck and Allstate Peterbilt. Premier Truck had the low bid for a 2027 Freightliner M2-106 at a cost of $203,337.00. As I mentioned, ConAgra is paying 100% of this, so we did run this by them to make sure they were comfortable with this purchase. And in your packet, I have an approval letter for our list of approval email from Mike Jacks at ConAgra saying that they're good with that purchase. So I am recommending a motion to approve the purchase of a 2027 Freightliner M2-106 from Premier Truck Group at a cost of $203,337 for use as the new sludge float truck for the ConAgra DAF facility. And this would have to be a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Schofield. Does anyone care to make a motion regarding the purchase of a new sludge truck? Chad Schlew.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a 2027 Freightliner M2-106 from Premier Truck Group at a cost of $203,337 for the use as the new sludge float truck for the ConAgra DAF facility.
Got a motion on the floor. We got a second? Cody?
I'll second.
Got a motion to second. Any further discussion? Ryland?
I guess my only concern about this is it's going to be driving 3 blocks every day. Any concerns about accelerated wear my understanding of diesel trucks is they don't like to be started up and run for just a few minutes at a time. That can cause some maintenance issues. So who's responsible for that? And
the agreement, ConAgra is responsible for all maintenance costs. ConAgra is responsible for the replacement cost.
Okay. And has the manufacturer or dealer been informed of how this is going to be used? Does this affect the warranty or anything on that?
No, we disclosed what it was going to be used for.
Okay. Thanks.
Chad?
I'm just curious as why ConAgra can't cut the check for this and keep us out of the loop.
We are going to own this truck. So us purchasing it and being reimbursed, then we are the owner of the truck.
And we're still going to own it and they're going to pay us for it?
Yes. It's a very good deal, Chad.
And they're doing the maintenance still?
Yeah,
We own it?
they're responsible for all costs associated with it. So when we did the original DAF agreement, we made sure on that, any maintenance, anything that would have to be put into it, replacement cost for parts would be 100% paid by ConAgra on it.
Nice.
Any other questions? Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Schwebs,
Yes.
Gens,
Yes.
Hargrove,
Yes.
Schlu,
Yes.
Erdmann,
Yes.
Sommerfeld,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Yanko,
Yes.
Pickard.
Yes.
Motion passes. Heading down to item 4D, proposed ordinance 2026-12, an ordinance creating Title 9, Chapter 13, vacant building registration program. Eric, you want to give us an update on this ordinance?
Yes, I can provide one. So
over the last year, we've had citizens that have brought up concerns about vacant buildings, vacant spaces that are located throughout the city, whether in the commercial or residential properties. This ordinance is a result of those conversations and a way to try to address those properties that could become public nuisances and hazards. And so really the overarching goal of this is to try to bring a registration program for those spaces that are vacant or in a state of disrepair, having to register those with our inspections office. They would have to pay an annual fee, except the initial registration would be waived. They have to provide access for annual building inspection to make sure that we don't have hazards that are created in there like animals, rodents getting in and creating an issue, or there's some other kind of hazardous issue taking place, like you have people that might be squatting inside of a business or something else that can create a hazard for the environment. And then the final part is to be able to correct deficiencies found within those building inspections. And then if the property stays vacant for an extended period of time, then they would have to be able to re-register. There are a variety of exceptions for this particular ordinance. Certainly spaces, if there's a lot that's just vacant, that is not something that has to be registered. We have properties sometimes that will sit vacant because it's in a probate process. So it has to undergo that. There are a variety of different rules and regulations that are with it that our inspections office will then take part in doing that enforcement. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or I can go more specific and run down the certain sections of the ordinance. Yeah, a question right there.
Go ahead, Ryland. We're gonna get a motion first, please. Does anyone care to make a motion on this ordinance?
I can.
We would need an introduction first, and then it would be, if
Yes.
the council wishes to waive the first reading, a motion to waive the first reading on it.
Would it be preferable to go through the sections before doing an introduction, Mayor?
We can do that.
Okay, we'll jump to that here first. So if you scroll in the packet, if we can get to, we're gonna just kind of cover the highlights of it. So the intent and purpose. So if we look at the intent and purpose of it, really the key point to keep in mind is to prevent the blighting influence and nuisances caused by those residential commercial structures that are condemned or vacant, to ensure the integrity of the community's health and welfare. Certainly as a former public safety official, when you add vacant buildings and spaces, they can lend themselves to areas certainly where it can attract people that are using it for squatting, utilizing drugs, vandalism, other points of concern. You have certainly nuisances in the terms, like I mentioned before, about animals that can get inside of them. You can have all kinds of manners of disgusting things that are taking place. The other things that we want to prevent are accidental fires or other things like that that can certainly lead to destruction of both that property as well as adjoining properties. And it's also important for us to know which buildings are certainly vacant to establish a proactive approach. It's much similar to our NSAID program for providing inspections for properties to make sure that they are not creating a hazard for our environment and the community. Moving down, when you talk about administration, I had mentioned that our chief building inspector or his designee would be responsible for this particular program. We have additional staff on hand that can also assist with the program as well. If we want to go down to the registration requirement, thank you. And so a residential dwelling, commercial building, or any other structure that is condemned as unfit for human habitation or is vacant shall register for this particular program. If you move down a little bit further, it talks about what the vacant dwelling means. And really that is a structure by means of a dwelling that is not occupied. And that dwelling or structure has remained unoccupied for 6 consecutive months shall be presumed vacant. A little bit down further from that are some exemptions. And so existing renovation. We have places that are being repaired, being fixed, and we want to make sure that we have that exemption in place because it does take time to be able to take care of those things, to bring in contractors and get get places up to code. Also, if you have a residential single-family home or owner-occupied home, two-family property that has been used as owner as a vacation home or seasonal basis for a period of at least 3 months within the previous 9 months, and the owner intends to resume occupancy, that is another exemption. You have exemptions that are related to condominiums and rentals and the percentage level of them being occupied. I mentioned probate. Hopefully you don't have to go through that, but if you do, we want to make sure we have an exemption for that type of issue. Also, we realize that sometimes it's difficult to sell properties. So if you have it listed on MLS and other sites, that is also an exemption because sometimes it takes time to be able to sell a property. And it talks about exemptions for our members of armed forces. So sometimes people are deployed and deployed for an extended period of time, and we do not want them to be impacted. I'm not an ice fisherman, but we don't want to be including the ice shacks into those too. I think we would have a full scale riot if we did that. And then I mentioned too about vacant lots. We're not concerned about the vacant lot and having to register that because it just might be an undeveloped property. So further on in the ordinance, it talks about some of the registration procedures and wanting to make sure that if you qualify for this program, that you register within 30 days. I don't feel I need to read through all that, but if you want me to, I certainly can. The rest of the ordinance talks a little bit about inspection fees that we have set. You have building maintenance and security standards. So again, I mentioned that this is really about providing a safe environment for our community as well as neighbors and existing buildings and property to try to prevent that trespassing, prevent hazardous issues, preventing fires and whatnot. The vacant property would still also, or the property owner would still also have to maintain the yard and accessory structures that are surrounding it up to our standard codes that we have. And then we also have some penalties, and as was mentioned with our I-4 amendments, about having severability, and we have that placed into the ordinance. Are there any questions for, I will have to go to the introduction, but we have staff available for questions between myself, David Schofield, and our chief building inspector. And our attorney, well crafted.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Does anyone care to make a motion regarding introducing this ordinance?
Yep.
Just introduction. Go ahead, Abigail.
I make a motion to introduce proposed ordinance 2026-12, an ordinance creating Title IX, Chapter 13, vacant building registration program.
The proposed ordinance has been introduced, which does not require a vote. Does anyone care to make a motion to waive the first reading of the proposed ordinance? Abigail?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the first reading of proposed ordinance 2026-12.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second, Ryland?
I would second Abby's motion.
We got a motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have a second.
Yep, we can go to the second, Mayor.
Does anyone care to make a motion to waive the second reading of the proposed ordinance? Gretchen?
I'll make a motion to waive the second reading.
We got a motion on the floor. Eric?
I'll second that.
Got a motion in the second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Does anyone care to make a motion to adopt the ordinance 2026-12? Abigail?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2026-12.
We got a motion. We have a second.
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 We got a motion in a second. Any further discussion? Chad Schlew.
I'm just curious, like say our downtown, we have, like just say like Diablo Blue, or whatever that place is.
Yeah.
Empty, it's vacant down below, obviously, but I think we have people living up above.
The Diablo Blue or the old rehab, that is a single level. So there's no one living above that particular place.
Okay, the stacked eatery then.
All right.
Chat, in those situations where there's rental above and say the bottom part's vacant, the ordinance builds in basically that those can be treated as two different locations on it. So the lower half, technically, they would need to register for that portion, even though the upper half is rented. that was brought up during consideration on the drafting. So very
Thank
good
you.
question on it.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, if I could mention, I think that's one of the strongest points of the ordinance. It's an abstract thought that a building could fall down and fall on someone, but if there's renters in the upper floors of a building and the lower floors of the building haven't been inspected in any way for years, those folks in the upper floors are at risk.
Yeah.
How many properties would you estimate that is in this condition?
Offhand, I would say a dozen right now. There's probably more once we get further into it, but I can think of quite a few at the moment, or at least I think that's a fair number.
Go ahead, Gretchen.
You had mentioned unoccupied for 6 months. This is owner or designee unoccupied because of the squatters in there. Is that delineated? I missed that part.
So if you take a look inside of that packet and you get into, I'll get you right to the section. It would be 913(5)(A)(2) or both A1 and A2, and that talks about what the criteria is for the registration. So you have first a section of requirement if it's unfit for habitation. I'm going to say it that way. Or if you have a vacant dwelling or structure and that is not occupied and that dwelling or structure has remained unoccupied for 6 consecutive months, shall be presumed vacant. So those are the criteria.
If, let's say there's a squatter and it's not unoccupied, technically, is that an issue?
Well, it'd be trespassing and
Okay.
some other issues. So
Yeah, I just
I get what you're getting at
I
now.
need to walk through that in my head. 'Cause,
That's a problem.
Gretchen, in the definition on the vacant dwelling too, there's a portion that talks about that the owner intends a dwelling or structure to remain unoccupied. So squatters in, yeah.
That's okay. I'm sorry. I don't think I understood you right away. My apology.
Yeah.
It's a good
Riley?
question.
Is there a plan for how the building inspector will gain access to these unoccupied buildings? Because if you're living in your house and he needs to do an inspection, at some point he catches you at home. I know of at least 2 empty houses that have been empty for a number of years where the owners of them do not live in the city. One of them is lacking a floor and a good chunk of it. And the other one, the owner went into a nursing home a decade ago or more, and all their extended family are out of town as well. So how do we reach out to these people to gain access to properties that might be difficult to?
So you bring up a great point there, and that has been a challenge for us in the past. So if let's say we're now encountering a property that we know has been vacant for a while, we have had issues trying to be able to track down people. That some of them are living outside of the state, some might be in homes, some have been deceased that we don't know. Part of the reason why we would like this particular ordinance to be put into place so that as properties do become vacant, they do get registered then with the actual property owner. So when time comes that we need to be able to take action, we know where the person is and we can locate them and work with them. For those that have not, let's say that have been gone for a while, we're not sure where they are, then we employ the services of the police department to help us track them down, and inspections has some ways to do that too as well. But that has been a challenge in the past, and we don't want to have to wait till the 11th hour to try to find somebody to deal with an issue that might be either a public nuisance or really frankly a safety hazard. That's a great question.
Any further questions, Cody?
So what happens if somebody fails to register or refuses to register their property? I know there's a penalty section. I thought I read something about charging the fee as a special assessment, but what happens in that case?
Go ahead,
Basically,
Ben.
what would happen if there's violation of the ordinance, citation would be issued each day that there's a continued violation, another citation can be issued. Say the individual ends up registering, request to do an inspection, they refuse to. We always have the ability to apply for a special inspection warrant through the court to try to get access that way as well. And then fines and forfeitures could continue after that point as well.
Any further questions? Any additional discussion? Abigail.
I just want to say I'm really appreciative for the work that you guys have been doing on the back end of this, because this has been something that has been brought up to me multiple times. And it also is something that has been bothering me for a long time. So I'm looking forward to being able to vote for this.
Chad.
Is this gonna address a house that may or may not be behind Answers Jewelers?
Nothing specific.
We're not talking about specific places, but if it has been vacant, then maybe they would apply.
Any other additional questions or discussion? Ryland.
What about a property that has multiple houses on the property, where one of them is potentially owner occupied, but the other house or houses are not? Would those, I saw that in here that, if it's less than, that if it's say, apartment building, that if it's 50% or more occupied, it's considered to be occupied. But there are a number of properties in town that have more than one, or it's, similarly connected. Somebody bought the house next door and is just letting it sit empty. Is that considered to be a vacant abandoned property?
In that case, so yes, if I own a property, I have a house and I buy my next door neighbor's house and have it, and if that stays empty for 6 months, then they would have to register it.
And this only is applying to living spaces, not other abandoned buildings?
It applies to commercial space as well.
Any other questions? Any additional discussion? Yeah,
Please, basically talking about garages, things along those lines.
Garages, barns, sheds,
So definition.
I happen to live next door to one that is falling in, and every time I look at it, I see another chunk of something that's fallen in, and we're starting to take bets on, when it will come down altogether and which direction it will fall, and if it will fall over the property line.
So garages, things along those lines would be included. Definition of a building for this as a structure for the support, shelter, enclosure of persons or property that would fall within that category. And also, it's the first kind of iteration of this on it too. It's going to be an evolving thing. We'll see what works, doesn't work, can always bring stuff back to do amendments before the council if things aren't working, if things are working great, and going forward from there. But
One of the things, though, that we still have as a tool in the tool belt are the raise and repair orders. So if we're finding that there's a structure that's an issue and it fits within statutory guidelines, that is something within your purview that we can take advantage of. And we've done a few of those. The inspections office has been involved with that on a number of occasions.
yeah, that's a great point. This doesn't extend the time frame needed for raise or repair. Say there's a situation that comes up that calls for it. The vacant building registration program won't really come into effect there. That's when it's going to go straight to raise or repair, either brought before city council or issued through the building inspector's office. So that is always available as well.
Just a quick question for you, Mr. Schofield. With, the INSEAD and then this, does this have any issues with capacity for the building inspectors?
I do think as we look at our budget for 2027 and beyond, We are adding things for the building inspection department to be responsible for. I think this will not be a huge heavy lift, but I think as we look forward on the horizon, I think eventually another building inspector will be required.
Thank you for that, Ryland.
On that topic, is the registration fee cover our expenses on inspection?
I can add, so we haven't set the registration fee yet. That would be set by resolution. We wanted to see how this body looked at the ordinance. Probably at the next meeting, we'd come back for a registration fee. We can't set it so onerous that it is vastly exceeding our cost as trying to deter someone from letting a building go vacant. We will probably look at our NSAID and there are some inspection costs that are included in that the state has said are reasonable. We'll probably look at that as to inform where our fee should be.
I would use caution in thinking that our, whatever fees we set at would actually totally offset the costs. We're a government service, so there is an expense for the service. And so it'll help take care of some of those admin fees, but as far as how to budget for it, there's ways we can look at it, whether we're contracting for a service too, to offset instead of bringing on, let's say, full-time personnel, which is a larger expense, or depending upon the activity and the direction that this council and body wants to take in the future, then that may be an option. But we would not be able to get to those registration fees to the level to cover that cost in its entirety. It would be like a sunk service, a sunk cost.
Any additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Gents,
Yes.
Hargrove,
Yes.
Schlue,
Yes.
Erdman,
Yes.
Sommerfeld,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Sutherland, Yanko,
Yes.
Pickard,
Yes.
Webbs.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item is regarding the UW Polytechnic's proposed certified survey map. Mr. Schofield, can you give us a brief summary on this item?
I can, while I'm opening this, I just wanted to point out that Mr. Higgins has sat here patiently this entire time for what I think will be a fairly short discussion. So I appreciate his patience. So UW Stout has proposed to merge a number of parcels. So over the years, mostly in the 1960s, they bought up a number of city blocks and expanded campus south of 13th Avenue. When they purchased those, there was streets that were vacated as part of that, but those parcels were never merged. So there's technically lot 1 of block 12 still exists. It's under, 4 parking lots or parking stalls. And technically, and I like to follow technically, there are setbacks for each of those property lines that have been ignored as Johnson Fieldhouse was constructed, the UW Stout football stadium and that sort of a thing. So as we're working with Stout through their proposed expansion of this recreation center to the west, we said we would really desire to clean this up. And so we would like to see a certified survey map done to merge these parcels. Folks that have been on this body know that these don't usually come to city council. They're usually handled by the plan commission. However, this actually overlays 2 separate plats. So Coddington's addition and JM Gates are different portions of this area, and state code requires that if a CSM overlaps more than one plat, it has to be approved in the same manner as a plat. So this is before you tonight. Plan Commission did review this on July 27th and recommended approval. I do recommend approval, and the motion would be approved. UW Stout Polytechnic's proposed certified survey map on South Broadway Street as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Schofield. Does anyone care to make a motion regarding approval of the certified survey map?
I move to make a motion to approve the UW Stout Polytechnic's proposed certified survey map on South Broadway Street.
Thank you. We got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Abigail.
I'll second Camden's motion.
We got a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
We got one abstain. Yep. Thank you, Chad. Motion passes. Heading down to item 4F is the Common Council will appoint a vice president. This was established in the previous city council meeting on July 20th. We voted for this vice president for 3 different reasons: for leadership and development purposes, for logistical purposes, as both Cody and I are working full time on top of our duties as mayor and council. So I want to make sure that the meeting is covered, and then also for potential agenda setting purposes when more policy comes. So I will leave it up to the council to appoint the next vice president. And do we have a motion to appoint anybody to be vice president? Gretchen.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was identified. I'll speak. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Abigail Pickard to the position of Common Council Vice President through April 2027.
Got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I would like to second that motion.
We got a motion second for Abigail Pickard for the next vice president. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed with the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, Abigail, as the new vice president of the Common Council. Moving down to budget transfers, item 5. We have 2 of them, and I understand both transfers are intra-fund, so they won't use contingency. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have 2 interfund transfers. The first one is related to our water department. Actually, I'm going to correct that. We're going right to the leisure center, recreation. So we've had some issues with our cooling system at our leisure services center. And what we'd like to do is do an interfund transfer to move a little over $3,100 over to the building repair to be able to cover those expenses. So that way we can repair our cooling system. The second budget transfer, this is related to our water department. So one of the things that we want to be able to rule out, or at least find out if we have issues, if we have leaks in our various laterals and water system throughout the city. And so we have an opportunity to work with a company to be able to provide that service. And you heard about it at the last meeting. We have money available in our contractual repairs that we would like to move from one of our water accounts to another one. And I know it sounds a little bit weird, but it's part of the reason why we have to do accounting to appease the Public Service Commission and report exactly what we're expending funds on. So we're asking for an amount of $13,500 to be transferred into another account to move forward with that water study, leak detection survey, I should say specifically.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Anybody want to make a motion to proceed with the budget transfer? Lee Schwebs.
I'll make a motion approving the budget transfer requests as presented.
Thank you, Lee. We got a motion. We have a second. Oh,
That was a motion for both budget transfers?
Yes,
Thank you.
I think I said plural, but maybe not.
Did too.
I thought you did too. I just wanted to confirm.
I can second.
we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Chad.
I was wondering if you could you go over the leak detection system thing again?
Yeah, so we will be hiring Faith Leak Detection. We did a bids. We sent out to 3 different contractors. Faith Leak Detection was 13,500. GPRS was 35,000, and then we did not get a bid from the third one. Acoustic leak detection, they literally listen to hydrants. So they have specialized equipment that they connect to the hydrant. They can hear the hiss of the water leaving the system. It is a different hiss than just normal usage. And depending on how loud it is at various hydrants, they can kind of triangulate and locate where that leak might be. So they're doing, they started actually yesterday, just kind of generally going through the system to look for leaks. And then where they have a leak, then they'll go in and triangulate that. We've done this in the past. We did, I know up on Hospital Hill, there was a leak years ago. The water was coming out of the ground towards the bottom of the hill. The leak was actually up by Memorial Hospital. And they could find the location of it based on this. So it's, I'm sure the US Navy at some point developed some of this technology, but it's pretty interesting how it gets used in a civilian use here. We will find small leaks. Every water system loses water. Hydrants have a drain port on the bottom, and if the valve doesn't seat quite right, you'll get some leakage there. There'll be small pinhole leaks throughout the system. We obviously would like that to be zero, so that this will be a good thing. We do not anticipate finding large leaks, but we would sure like to rule it out. So this is, I think, well worth the expense.
So it's just a one-time deal. This is nothing that will help us down the line.
It's a one-time deal. A lot of the communities that do this, because it's as reasonable as it is, they'll do it every 2 years or 3 years. This company is doing Onalaska's. They're doing it every other year because they have a lot of leaks in Onalaska apparently, and they're just continually just checking parts of the system.
If you wanted to contract with them, could you get a deal? Like if we knew we were going to be doing it every 2 years, could we say like, hey, we plan on using you, make it less money?
Yeah, we certainly could going forward. That's not how we set up the proposals this time. When we did our generator inspections, we did a 3-year contract with them to try to drive that cost down. Yep.
Ryland.
I remember you said something about rough estimate if we lose about 7% through leaks, you thought, or at least was like our rough numbers based off of the pumped water and the build amount.
I think I do recall saying that. I think we did look at our PSC report. I think Jeremy's still here. Maybe Jeremy should come up to the podium and ask that.
I guess my main question is, do we have a rough number on what the leaks that we have are costing us every year?
Yeah, not so much the cost, but I can tell you, we have about little over 8 million gallons unaccounted for, whether that's, I assume it's a leak someplace, versus what we pump and water sold. So it's about 2% of what we're selling. So 8.5 million roughly is what we're losing.
And what's our cost to pump the 8.5 million that is unaccounted for?
That I can only tell you big numbers, in the 50 millions, it's I would say if I had to guess, probably about, close to 2,500 a month, maybe treating. But that's usually the leaks are something of exposing a bigger problem down the road. Most of the time it's hydrants. We'll end up repairing a bunch of hydrants because the valves don't seat correctly. And we want the hydrants to work for our fire department as well. So.
And I assume that, leaks don't just stay small forever.
Correct.
They turn into bigger problems that cost more money if ignored. So.
Correct. Yep.
This is a good long-term investment.
We did it, I want to say 5 years ago, we did just hydrants alone, and we found 22 leaking hydrants and about 5 major service line leaks, which were like 1-inch leaks or bigger. And it was a worthwhile investment, and our water loss dropped significantly after that. So I expect the same results, maybe 20, 30 hydrants we need to repair, small leaks and some service lines so it's, usually a pretty good thing for us.
And just to provide some context, we have about 1,000 hydrants.
Yeah, we have,
20 or 30 hydrants is a small number, but we'd still like that to be zero.
Yep. We have, 1,010 hydrants, so.
Any additional questions? Additional discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Hargrove.
Yes.
Shalou.
Yes.
Erdman.
Yes.
Sommerfeld.
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Yanko.
Yes.
Pickard.
Yes.
Schwebs.
Yes.
Gentz.
Yes.
Motion passes. Heading down to the mayor's report, I have a few things. Reminder that the September city council meeting, the first one, the day after Labor Day, will be Tuesday, September 8th because of Labor Day. So we won't have it on that Monday, but we'll have it on the next day, still at 7:00. Tomorrow is National Night Out, and we're right over here at Wilson Park. We get to celebrate our police departments, fire departments, first responders, and let the local community engage with those departments. It's a great time, good food, vendors and all that stuff, and Ludington Guard Band will be playing, and overall, it's just a good time. Communications and miscellaneous business that we have on item 7. That used to be just for staffs, and we're going to bring that back, and we're going to start that today to just have city staff talk. If they have any updates on that, we'll have a agenda item in the future to see what we want to do with that. Most likely, we'll either just keep it to city staff, or we might have something with other business or possible future agenda items as well. There's some risks to having it just kind of be a free-for-all and not sticking to agenda items. So we'll not be going around the room any further. Today got a little heated. I'll take some accountability for that, not laying out the ground rules. I have a zero tolerance for getting off topic and not being respectful and talking over people and arguing. We will not be taking jabs at each other, at other current or past city council members. I will not be discussing previous votes. We will only discuss agenda items as presented. That's part of the Roberts Rule of Orders. And if we drift from the agenda topic, I'm here to bring it back. My grandfather was a judge. My uncle has his spot. If their chambers weren't in order, they had nothing in order. And this will be in order. It will be respectful. It will be calm. We all have our differences. We're not going to agree on everything. We will respect each other, and we will be professional, and we will run this accordingly. That's all I got. So with communications and miscellaneous business, Ben, do you have anything? Mr. Schofield? Eric?
No, sir.
Chris?
Talk about election stuff?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we've got a couple of things going on with elections in the very near future. In-person absentee voting is currently being conducted out of City Hall this week, as it was last week as well, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Up until Thursday this week, every day. On Friday, it will be from 10 a.m. to noon. We have the public test of our voting equipment tomorrow at 2:30 in the afternoon. This is where we test to make sure all of our equipment spits out the right numbers. Should be good. And then we have the August primary election on Tuesday next week. So wish all of our poll workers good luck, and hope it goes smoothly.
Thank you, Chris. And for the mayor's report also in this communications miscellaneous business, if you guys have anything that I can share in the mayor's report, you can bring it to me. And if it's appropriate, I can share it at that time. Heading down to item number 8 under claims. Anyone want to make a motion regarding the claims list? Abigail?
I'll make a motion to approve the claims list as presented.
We got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Schlue,
Yes.
Erdman,
Yes.
Sommerfeld,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Yanko,
Yes.
Pickard,
Yes.
Schwebs,
Yes.
Gentz,
Yes.
Hargrove.
Yes.
Motion passes. Heading down to item number 9 is for the revised license list. Do we have a motion for the revised license list?
I make a motion to approve the revised list.
Got a motion. Do we have a second? Abigail?
I'll second.
We got a motion to second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Mrs. Vice President.
I'll second Camden's
Madam Vice
motion.
President. We got a motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.